This is the threaded rod with the 4 nuts on it that I am going to be using for my tie rod ends, and I need to grind them down enough so that they will fit inside of this tubing. Now this is just conduit. It's the same as this piece of steel tubing inside, but I think I'm going to buy another piece of tubing like this because it's much thicker wall than the conduit, which is very thin. The conduit would probably work in a pinch, probably work for my tie rod, but not for the drag link. The drag link has more pressure on it than the tie rods because the tie rod just keeps things running parallel, you know, whereas the drag link is pushing and pulling both front wheels on that one piece. Anyway, that's what we're going to put together, and as you can see, I already have one chucked up here in my lathe. Yeah, that's my lathe, my drill press, and I'm going to use my grinder with a sandpaper flapper disc on it, and so I can kind of sneak up on it. It's almost flat. The head of this one actually is on a bolt, and the head of the bolt almost will fit inside of this pipe. So I got to get these turned down until it starts hitting those points on that bolt. Yep, I think that'll do it. It's a tight fit, and that's what I want. Now what I'm going to do is I will put these nuts on a threaded rod and drive them inside of this piece of tubing. Not this short one, this is just my test fitting piece, but inside of my tie rod, and then I will drill like 4 holes that will line up with my sleeve pieces, and I will, yeah, what's the word I want? Come on, give it to me. I will do plug welds. That's the word we're looking for. I will plug weld it, and after it's plug welded, then I'll be able to sand down the end of my tie rod and make it nice and smooth again. But yep, that's what we're looking for right there, and that's a drive-in fit, and that's what I want. Only 3 more to do. And there's how it will look. It's not welded yet, but that'll give you an idea how the finished product will look. And I've left a little bit of thread on each side, a little bit less on this one, but it can be adjusted either way. So that I have adjustment for my toe in and toe out. So that's how those are going to work. I got to do my drag link yet, but I can't cut that to length. This is, I expect, about the length it's going to be, but I can't cut the drag link to length until I get my steering box set up and get the axle in place, and we figure out exactly where it will lay out with this. So I still got 2 to do, and I'll get those done, but I won't put them into the tubing. Well, here we are. We have our fret end mocked up. You can see I have my tie rod sticking in place. We have our spindles down here. I have bushings in them. They're brass bushing or bronze bushings on both sides, and the washer on each side. And of course these will get welded on here onto the spindle like that. And I'm going to be drilling it out, putting a grease fitting in here. same as we're going to put grease fittings on our axle for our kingpins. And I've been doing a little mock-up here, getting an idea of what I want to do as far as tying the axle into what are called the split wishbone. That's what you would call them if it was off of an old Ford. These tubes here are going to get drilled and slid down through the axle and welded in, and then I'm going to use wrenches. Not sure what size yet. I only have one bolt, but they'll get welded to the head of the bolt, and the bolt will go down through the axle. There'll be a wrench on the top and on the bottom, which will allow for a little bit of a pivot here, not a lot, just enough so I can get the angle, because these don't run square off of the axle. They taper back until it comes to the width of the frame. And my son had bought some tie rod ends for his Dodge van, and ended up replacing the whole axle unit, not the axle unit, what am I trying to say? Ended up replacing the whole rack and pinion unit that was complete with the tie rod ends and everything. So he gave me these, and these will be used for the rear wishbones, radius rods I guess we'll call them, and they're just the right size so that all I have to do is grind a little bit of the casting off of here where it has a seam on each side, and it'll slide right inside of our radius rod tubes. So I'm not sure if I'm going to find another pair of these to do with, or if I'm going to use some Heim joints or get some kind of tie rod ends like this again. I don't know. We'll see what happens, what comes up in the process. So that's where we're at. I'm headed in for the day, and I have decided, after doing a little work on the end of my spring here, that it's pretty rotted right on the very end. So I am going to cut those off, but before I do, I'm going to, well, let me see. Let me take this piece here. Use this for an illustration. Something similar to this that will get welded on the top of the spring, which will account for making this into what would be called a reversed eye, because the spring would normally wrap up around. And I may actually do that. Once I get this tucked in place, I may heat this end up and wrap it up over and then re-weld it again. But that will solve two problems. One, you can see how badly pitted these are. It would take care of that. Plus, it'll give me a full circle, which this one here does not go all the way around the back. Get this out of the way so you can see. See that? Doesn't make a complete loop. So this will give me a complete loop by doing this, and I can make it a standard size to fit the bushings that I have to work with the shackles. So that's another part of my process. But my very next thing that I'm going to do next is I'm going to pull these spindle bosses off, take these off. I'll weld my spindle bolts onto here, and then I will cut my kingpins, weld these washers onto the top of them, and reassemble it and figure out where I'm going to drill my pin. I'm going to put probably a very small Allen bolt in here just to keep this from turning, because the kingpin actually will turn with the spindles, unlike normal setup. Normally it would have the bushings on the spindle setup and it would be locked into the kingpin boss down here, but we're going the opposite way around because I had bushings to fit down in here. So I think I explained all that before. So that's where we're headed. And that's my project and my progress for today in the Shade Tree Fix-It Shop. Friday, what is it, April 29th or something like that. Hope you're all having a good day where you are. It's a nice day outside here. It's 55 degrees or something like that. And I have my gadget bike sitting out front with a for sale sign on it. Yep, be nice if somebody would come by and want it. Thanks for watching. Bye now.